Sweet. So we are now live. So thank you everybody for joining. This week we have Dan, Kuvan, Chris, and myself. So thank you all, first of all. But to kick us off, this is Off the Record Airtable Secrets and Lore. This is a group of Airtable users. We're exploring new ways to use Airtable to optimize our businesses and lives. Open to hearing from anyone about the community, about your experience, good or bad, to make a positive, using Airtable to make a positive impact in the world. We attempt to promote people coming from any level to share your ideas or ask questions. We also share our experiences, tips, and practices, and offer ways to get help and get involved in the community. We meet every Wednesday from 7 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern. And you can join us by going to www.videowithben.com and you'll join the Zoom room.
Anyone can.
Yeah, anyone can join. If you're in the Facebook group watching this, probably if it's before 8 p.m. Eastern, you can join on a Wednesday.
But more importantly, if you're watching this not on Wednesday, you can put on your calendar Wednesday and come.
Yes.
Except it's not every Wednesday anymore, is it? You said it's every other one?
But you can still come.
Oh, but what I'm saying is like if you put it on your calendar and we're not there that particular Wednesday, try again the next week.
Yeah. Keep coming back.
Yeah. For reference, every other Wednesday, and the on Wednesday is February 2nd. So the off Wednesday would be February 9th. On Wednesday, February 16th. So to kick things off, typically we start off with Airtable news. I know there's been a lot of news. I haven't been able to join the BuiltOnAir podcast recently, but I know Dan had some opinions on Airtable changes that directly affected his business. But Chris, do you know if we have any Airtable news this week?
Gosh, I know that Softer just had like another announcement about something. I'd have to go look at the emails.
They won their
they won the product hunt.
Kitty.
Yeah, they won the Golden Kitty, which is interesting. Knowing how the kitties and product hunt works, I'll just leave it at that. With it's interesting.
What is in product hunt?
What about product hunt?
What is a kitty?
So product hunt, you know what product hunt is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So every year they do kind of their own award show. Just like if we were to have an first off, if we were to have an Airtable Awards, I think Dan Fellars hands down would win the first award for industry legend, because he's been doing this longer and with more success than anybody. But beside that, so it's their version, and they just call it a Golden Kitty because I think cats and the internet.
Okay.
I don't know why it's a Golden Kitty.
Their mascot's a cat.
Oh, is it? Well, it's also Chinese New Year one day, so happy Chinese New Year to folks. And what are we?
Tiger.
Water tiger.
Yeah.
Water tiger.
2 weeks ago, had Softer raised their Series A. Did we talk about that?
We talked about that, I think.
We hit it up then. Still no word on Stacker, which is really strange. I signed up to all their emails. I haven't seen any emails from them in a while. Pori is slugging away. We need to have someone from Mini Extensions. They have a little cult following, but yeah, everybody's doing well. But we've got Dan, so we can actually find out about Dan news in just a moment. But I'm trying to think of other news. No, I'm just going to say this. The drama around licensing or the changes in pricing seems to have simmered. I don't know if this sting is still real, but it seems not to be as I think
it's in a wait and hold period.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're waiting for an update.
So before we get too far, everybody should know Ben and myself and Kavan. But Dan, you're prolific. You're like the sun. If you've been on the earth for more than a day and don't know what the sun is, you're probably out of your mind. But just in case, Dan, could you tell people who you are and what your relationship to Airtable is and why I am so in love with the work you do? You don't have to do that part.
Appreciate that, Chris. That's quite the intro. Dan Fellars. Yeah. So I am the founder of a company called Openside is the company name, but we have a product called On2Air. So if you've seen On2Air, it's a suite of apps that extend Airtable. So it allows you to do a variety of different things on top of Airtable. Our popular apps are our backup solution to help you back up your data outside of Airtable. If you have any sensitive data. Yep, there's our website. It's best practice to make sure you have it outside of the primary place that you're storing it. So it's good to back up. We also have a couple other products. Amplify is kind of similar to Interfaces. It's an app that runs inside of Airtable and allows you to view your data. It also allows you to extend your data. So we have additional viewers of your data, so you can actually edit your long content fields as HTML, or you can view your attachments as sidebars, JSON editor. Google, we have integration with Google, so you can view your Google Docs. You also, through our other app, Actions, you can automate a lot of integrations with Google Docs, so you can populate Google Docs with your data from Airtable, Google Sheets, and Google Slides as well. We also integrate with Zapier, so you can do more advanced Zapier connections to update your data. And forms as well. We also have an integration with JotForm. So if you're building more advanced forms that require things like filtered records, viewing kind of a parent-child relationship of your forms, you can do that through our forms. So that's kind of it. And we've got some others as well. And we're looking to launch many more apps in the future.
I know backup. I've used backups quite a bit with certain of my clients. And I know that one works very well. And I think it's like the only backup solution out there, as far as I know, or like decent one.
Yeah, let's pretend that.
Let's make it even simpler. So if you're watching and you just started with Airtable and you think, if there was only a way I could do this, On2Air will probably have a solution for you. Now, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. You've been using Airtable forever, and you've got some things that it's just never going to work for your clients, for yourself. On2Air has a solution for you too. So to me, when you think about this, because even the most seasoned pros probably aren't backing up like they should be, or they've got all their integrations all over the place, but going with On2Air, everything from forms to Amplify, which is like interface, to backup to scheme. We didn't get into schemas. You got to know the schema. Again, that's some advanced stuff. You newbies, get your schema action and game early so you don't have to booby trap yourself. Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to come and make it simple so the audiences know what we got.
That's the goal, is to kind of be a full solution suite for businesses running on Airtable, and also put a plug in for BuiltOnAir. It's another community. So there's a website, BuiltOnAir.com, where we'll post things going on. And we also have a Slack community. So if you like Slack and want to join the Slack community, check us out, BuiltOnAir.com/join. And yeah, so that's kind of, I found Airtable like 4 years ago, 5 years maybe now, and just started using it. I'm an engineer by trade and was running a company doing custom software development, and I decided to shift entirely to building on top of Airtable. Kind of saw the vision of the potential of how companies could run their business on Airtable, and felt I could provide services around there and products, and haven't changed since. So it's been good.
And I like that, again, with this BuiltOnAir. I was on BuiltOnAir some time ago. Everybody's been. Again, I think
all
this
three
is,
have been on. Yep.
People don't talk about this enough. There are a lot of people out there consulting. There are a lot of people out there adding built-on solutions and this. Dan Fellars had the community, the additional products, the news, and everything that we would love to be, that we're just some hacks on a Facebook group. He did it first. So again, I just want to say recognition, all props to you, Dan.
Thank you, Chris.
I don't think Dan knows this, but I actually got my first client from being involved in the BuiltOnAir community, the Slack community. And I can say that community has been I don't know what the word, instrumental or.
Yeah, that's the word. That's the word.
Instrumental to my success being an Airtable consultant, because Dan also started a group of Airtable consultants called the Openside experts. I think that's the name of the group. So if you're a consultant and you want to get involved with other Airtable consultants, that's the place to go. But being involved with them, learning more about consulting, as well as just interacting with people in Airtable, that was the BuiltOnAir community was the best. When I first
Yeah, so
started.
if the Earth was built, if the Earth was Airtable and it was built in 7 days, Dan created the Airtable Garden of Eden.
I said,
right,
the
next
reason I'm
topic,
here
next
is
topic.
thanks to Dan too. Just want to throw that out there.
No, Dan, I don't know. There might have been people who are around longer than you, but I just remember when someone from your show reached out and said they wanted to interview me. I'm like, for what? And it's just like, and then I kept going, oh, you do this and you do this. Plus you're in Salt Lake, or at least in Utah.
Utah, yeah, down south. Yep.
Yeah, Provo.
Yep.
And there's, if you don't know, Provo is just Silicon Valley with morals. So, am I wrong?
Maybe more morals. There's still
Okay,
room
more
for
morals.
improvement.
Okay, we'll see. But this whole show, Dan, thank you for being on, and thank you for having all of us on your show. This whole show started because, Dan, you and I were watching a YouTube live stream, I think it was, where Table Talk. Aaron, thank you, Aaron. I know Aaron watches the show. And Aaron was had 2 folks on from Airtable, multiple folks actually, but they were talking about some of the changes that were happening, and it was a mess. I'll just say that. The comments were the kind of comments you don't ever want to get into. I got accused of everything from working for Airtable. By the way, I'm in magazines and have books and TV shows. I don't have to work for Airtable. Okay, just take that to the bank. But people were getting upset, and my whole point with it at that time, but we had Dan on to tell us his side of this, was it's too late. Like, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. What we can do is try to figure out what's going on. So to recap the changes, Dan, before you give us your position, or Ben or Kavan, one of you recap the changes for people who don't know. I'll try to bring the website up so people can see it.
Yeah, Kavan, you want to give a summary? You probably have a better.
Well, so Airtable changed their packages for Free, Plus, and Pro. They didn't change the pricing, but they changed what features were available. And in some cases, they got better features. But one of the big things was that new Pro workspaces are going to be limited to 10 apps per base. And that has huge repercussions for people who are consulting and that need to have lots of, they're using lots of different apps, people that have lots of apps in there, and especially for people who develop third-party apps, which Dan does.
Yeah. So my perspective. So I was the one that called you out for working for Airtable. I want to make it public. That was a joke. I was just joking. I know you don't work there.
I keep forgetting that. Okay, but yeah, I was called out for a few things, but no, I don't. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I can't find the article. I swear they're hiding this blog post. Go ahead, Dan. And Dan.
Yeah. It's probably still up. Hopefully. I'm actually surprised that they kept it up. I thought they were going to take it down once Scott's probably the most vocal.
I saw today they added, like, when you get prompted to upgrade your plan to the new Pro plan, it said 10 apps and it said new on there. Like, it was like a new, which it is new to the plan, that the limitation is 10, but they were labeling it as like a benefit.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like if you're on free and you want to switch and upgrade to the new free from your legacy free, you get 5 collaborators who can create and edit.
Yeah.
As opposed to unlimited, which it was before. But they don't mention you had unlimited before.
Yeah. And I think Rebecca pointed out they do kind of a side-by-side, and they don't say on the old plan that you have unlimited, but on the new they say you have 5. So they don't point out the fact that you're going from unlimited to 5. So they're starting to roll this out.
This is new. This does say 10 apps for base now.
It does. If you scroll down, I don't think have they updated down below. Keep going. Yeah.
No.
See. Oh, okay. So that's updated.
Yeah, I checked today and everything was updated on my end on their marketing.
Yeah. So they're rolling this out. I mean, my perspective was, I want more people using Airtable like Chris does. I want more Chris's out there that manage their life in Airtable. And with this new change, have you ever counted, Chris, how many apps you have installed?
I'm ashamed to say hundreds.
Yeah, right. So
hundreds.
so that's my perspective, is they're really limiting the potential of what people can do with it. And I think that, I agree with your point that they can, that this is kind of the way that enterprise companies go. I think it's a really poor business decision. And so that's where I kind of voice my pushback on them. I think they're really shooting themselves in the foot by limiting what people, I think this is going to deter people from even exploring Airtable as a potential solution. And that's their main way that they get people. It's kind of a product that needs to simmer a bit, where you need to try it for a while, play with it. And then you're like, hey, I could use this here, I could use it there, to really figure it out. It's not a simple, 5 minutes in, you kind of get it. And so I think they're really hurting their growth strategy with this long term. So I'm pushing back. I'm still pushing back. I'm waiting to see. I think they posted in their thread that they're gathering the feedback, and hopefully they'll make some adjustments that are more appealing in the future. So we'll see if they listen or not, but I'm still not happy about it.
Yeah. I mean, so what the latest change, what people were upset about, was the change to the expanded view. They now have a form where you can go in and you can submit what you think about the changes to the expanded view. I'm wondering if they're eventually going to get something like that for this changes to the plans, but I'm guessing that most people probably aren't going to feel as passionate about that as they do about the expanded view.
Right.
Personally,
Yeah, that's more immediate. Yeah. Well, and the thing is the pricing change, they're not going to see a huge backlash because it doesn't impact current users, right? So the average current user is going to be like, well, I've got my legacy plan. So that's why I think this change, you see it impacts people today.
Rebecca was pretty vocal, and she's a current user.
Yeah.
To me, there are two people, and I just want to say officially, I have to apologize to Kavan, because Kavan pointed out to me in a private message. I'm not thinking about this, Dan. By the way, I do appreciate what you said about you want more Chris Dancy's. That's, trust me, my mother decided one was enough. Maybe you should take her advice. But I think I'm not being sensitive enough to people's positions. I do want to apologize to Kavan and Kamille and other people that maybe I wasn't being sensitive. When I say we just need to own this, I'm not saying that with anything more than surrender. If I were to try to get my head around the power that Airtable has over my life, I would not be able to function. And that's just me. Now think about being a business like Dan, who depends on Airtable, right? Not only for I don't know if Dan runs his life on Airtable like I do, but it's his livelihood, or a consultant like Ben or Kavan, right? So I think I could have been a little bit more tactful in my words. So I just do want to say I do that. But for me, I'm just not an excuse. I just need to surrender to it, because let's be honest. If Airtable said, Chris, you need to pay for all your apps, I would have to. What I'm going to do, take away functionality?
Right.
I wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah. And you are lucky to be in a position where you would have the funds to do so.
And I would, yes.
Yeah. There are some smaller businesses or smaller organizations where it would have a much bigger impact on them.
Yeah, but I think this is one of the interesting things, and I think, Dan, maybe you can talk about this. I know definitely Ben, and all of you probably can, but for me and the type of work that I do as a speaker and a consultant, I've actually been able to take Airtable that runs my life and use it in my business. You know what I mean? Right. I now sell speaking services with Airtable. A lot of events aren't even managing their speakers with anything. So I sell them speaker systems. It's just, I built a whole dashboarding system for an event I did that collected survey results and put them on a map. So, I think in some ways we need to kind of look at where Airtable starts and ends and how it affects each of us differently, because there's a lot going on here. If you just look at the 4 or 5 people in this meeting right now.
Right. Yeah, I think, from my perspective, to me, it goes to the vision of Airtable and what they want to be when they grow up, because they're still not grown up yet. And I think this fiasco with their feature updates, demonstrates their immaturity level as a company. And I think that it to me, it tells me that they don't think like a platform. They think like a product company. And because to me, a platform would be looking for more ways to get to create an ecosystem and foster an ecosystem. And you don't do that by limiting the number of apps that people can use. So like I shared with them, I did some research on, I found somebody who collected, I think, 82 different marketplaces for SaaS companies. And I went through, I didn't go through every single one, but I did enough to get a feel of how those marketplaces price their extensions or apps or whatever they call them. And I couldn't find a single one that had such a low limit on how many. All of them were the majority of them were unlimited usage, because that makes sense, because you want your customers using those apps, because that's what makes a customer sticky. It makes it harder for a customer to leave that platform. And so for me, it's a lack of vision of understanding how customers use extensions and apps and plugins and what makes an ecosystem thrive. So that's where I just think it's a really short-sighted, poor decision by Airtable.
And again, if we were to jump onto Airtable's website and we were to look up what is their vision, I mean, they say right here, Airtable was founded under the belief that software shouldn't dictate how you work. Okay, that's the functionality. You should dictate our work. I get that. But their mission, okay, so what is it? To democratize software by enabling anyone to build tools that meet their needs, creators around the world. So anyone. So did they change their kind of mission in the latest update? No, but they limited it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dan, I think you said something so pressing, and I am with this. Again, I'm fortunate I get to show people Airtable and not a consultant or any other capacity other than like, hey, this is cool. I know you'd like me for this, but you should try this. Dan said something that we all need to realize. Everybody finds Airtable and then it grows. It's a slow thing. I need it for this. I need it for that. Some people go all in right away. I'm sure Kavan hears from these people all the time in her consulting. I need this, I want to do all the, and I meet people all the time. Chris, I want your system. Like, you couldn't handle my system. But trust me, right? But it goes back to something I've been saying for over a year. They fundamentally need to rethink their licensing strategy from the inside out and make it a build as you go. You get every feature for 100 records, and then you pay for, again, you know what I'm saying? It's just that simple.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to say that one of the things that really, really attracted me to Airtable is that concept of democratizing software creation. And I see that they have built out so many features that make that possible at so many different levels, that they've got your basic thing where you can do all kinds of things at no code. And then if you want to build more software, then they have these like little stair steps. I've never seen it before, where, okay, just a little bit more, you add in scripting. And it's just a little bit of step to try and get scripting. There's all these great documentation. There's all these example scripts that you can do it. And then you want to do something a little bit more. Okay, then we can do custom apps. And it's just a little bit harder to do custom apps once you've got scripting down. And they're like, you want to build something else where you reach in from outside? There's the API. Okay, so you're not going to jump in and say, do all of this stuff all at once, because you have to learn to it. But you can take someone like me, who I used to think I could not code. I used to think that no way, that's it. I can't be a developer. And then Airtable said, hey, we have this product and it's free to go develop stuff like this. Try it out. And I found out, hey, I can do this. Hey, I'm good at this, and I love that. And I would love for other people to have that exact same journey that I was able to do, where they could say, okay, I want to build software. I've been wanting to build software for years. Now here's finally this tool where I can actually do it. I've never seen another tool that just guides people to level up that way.
Yeah. And that's where, if they decide to just kind of play at the enterprise level, like if you look at the community and who's helping their customers, it's people who came through, it's Kavan and others who have very similar stories, that they're going to, they're going to lose out on that side of the community that is giving them free support and helping their paying customers. And so it's not a smart business decision. I hope they get it. I've definitely told them that. If they don't get it, then they can be, I agree with you, they can be whatever kind of company they want to be. I think they're making a really bad decision from a business perspective. I can adjust my business accordingly and figure that out or go elsewhere. But I just think it's really short-sighted on their part.
Rebecca joined us. Or her phone.
Hey, Rebecca. Her phone. We were chatting about.
Yeah, sorta.
We were chatting about you were a regular user who was upset about the changes. Okay.
Yeah, they're new. Yeah, that's pretty new. I think that was a week ago when they pushed that change out. So that's a new one. The thread, if you look at the thread for the update that they made, it's amazing the amount of pushback that this feature, it might be the most pushback I've seen for a feature release in their.
What I was noticed is, look at how many people who have never posted before,
Exactly.
who created accounts specifically so they could post on that. Like you look at them and person after person were like, they joined and then they immediately posted. And that's all that they've done.
It's not just Kavan, Rebecca, and Scott.
And that was for the expanded record change.
Yeah.
The
amount of just overwhelming negative pushback on that. And that's where, and on that one, I think that they can make the change that they were looking for and make it work. I don't think people are pushing back on it being like a 2-column, because it changed from where the label was at the top with the input below, and now the labels are on the left and the input on the right. So it went to a 2-column instead of 1 column. And I don't think the pushback is on that. I think it's on the little things that they dropped the ball on.
I think there's a lot of different things, and there are actually some nice things about the new change. There are some things that are improvements, at least for some people. I think I'm at the point where, okay, we know that Airtable has recognized that the new design is not going to work and that they need to start changing it. And I think that they've got some really smart people there, given the feedback saying, this is how we use it. These are what we need to be able to do with this. And I think they're going to be able to come back with a totally new design that is better than the old one, as well as better than the current one.
You've got a lot of faith. Come on.
I do. I've seen it happen multiple times.
Don't understand vision wise is you had to have just grabbed somebody in an office down the hallway and said, hey, how does this look? There had to be some sort of internal something. So either kind of like, I think it was Kuvan said, or maybe it was Scott, I don't remember, basically like, did you look at it?
No, I don't think the problem was, did they look at it? I think the problem was, did you use it in the way that your users are using it? Because visually, if you have no other background, you're not thinking about when you're doing it, it's very pretty. I mean, it looks visually nice, but you can't do the work that you want to do with it.
I don't think it looks good. I think it looks like what the expanded record view would have looked like in 2014. Not today.
I think use the expanded record, so I'll add that as a caveat to my opinion on it. But I don't see any real problem with it. It looks clean. My only thing is I can't copy the record ID as easily. That's my only negative, is I don't know besides the URL, how to find that. But kind of a prediction for this is, with the apps, one of the things that it seemed like Airtable was doing was pushing people towards interfaces by limiting the number of apps, and maybe by making the UI worse in the expanded record, they're also trying to push people towards interfaces and do a record layout in interfaces instead. That would be my only guess.
Yeah. The fact that they didn't keep the icons, right? How did somebody did they actually have a discussion and say, should we keep these icons that let you know what kind of field this is, that's kind of a big deal. And they said, no, let's remove those. Or was it more like they just didn't think about it and it went forward and nobody noticed it because nobody realized how important those are? I don't know.
So I've seen on grid view, there've been several people over the years who've said that they want to get rid of the icons from grid view because they want to be able to see more text of what the actual field label is. I'm wondering if it was kind of related to that. I personally really like the icons. Like when you're trying to troubleshoot something, those icons tell you so much information. Like, okay, I have no idea what your problem is. You show me a screen capture. Oh, the problem is because it's this field type.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have that deep knowledge of what those icons mean.
Yeah.
I think what's more important is that you couldn't tell what's editable or not unless you moved your mouse over it. You've got different fields, and
edit
how
thing
do I know
drive
which
me
one
crazy.
I actually edit? Now we can tell if you're familiar with icons. We can tell, okay, we know based on what that icon is if it's editable or not. But there's a lot of users that they need to know which they can edit, which is the right one to get, without having to move the mouse all over it. And they're not necessarily going to care the specific fields type, but they will need to know if it's editable.
To Airtable's point, even if you previously with the icons, you could have field level permissions to where people couldn't edit it, but it would still show that icon type. So that might have been misleading, just as a point on Airtable's side before. Like you can edit the permissions to who can edit this field in this table, and say no one, or like only me. But then for everybody else, even though it's that field type, they still can't edit it.
Like I think they got that right in the interface. In the interfaces, they make it clear when you're just looking at it, is this field editable by me or not? And they don't need icons for that, but you have to be able to tell if that's something that you edit before you put your mouse over it.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think about the expanded records?
I said in Facebook, for me, the big thing for it would be if they were just movable, like if I could just rearrange it, it wouldn't make me as crazy. I never noticed the icons. I used to have to use emoji for attachment because they all were kind of grayed out colored. So something in my brain and the way my brain works, they never helped me and I always had to use an emoji for whatever they were. So I didn't miss those as much. To what Kavan said earlier, I, to this day, am still going crazy with when I'm in the extended form view, what's read-only and what's not. It makes me nuts. It's weird how they handle read-only being editable or not editable in Form Designer, and how that looks more obvious in Form Designer than in extended form view. Because in my Form Designer, I have a lot of things that are read-only, but suddenly, I don't know, they look more visually understandable to me. At the end
you
of
mean
the day,
interfaces?
Yeah, interfaces, sorry, interface, yes, yeah. At the end of the day, it's like anything else. I'm stuck. It made me want to go back and clean up some of my field names so they looked cleaner now that they're kind of all out there on their own in their hinterland, if they're not absolutely pristine looking. But like, let's be honest, serious criticism for Airtable right now. The hours they have sucked out of my life from having to clean stuff up because the way they present it to me makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's exactly my gripe. And I actually got a little bit of a note about it from a superior, is like, they're sure making a lot of changes. And if we get into the system and learn it all, we're not going to want to reuse it. But on the note of what you just said, I almost a day implementing a whole emoji system for the entire system. And somebody paid me to do that. Somebody lost money because I had to do that because you made a small, stupid change.
And you were also incredibly lucky that you didn't have automations or something set up where changing field names would break them.
And this is where Airtable is different than a Salesforce or a ServiceNow. And that's, Dan knows my experience comes from these companies, these kind of enterprise SaaS companies. Traditionally, how an enterprise, let's forget Airtable for a minute. Let's just pretend we're an enterprise software company like they want to be. How that would work is someone would go out and say, you've got this problem, we're going to fix it with this. So if it's ServiceNow, it's like an ITSM solution. If it's Salesforce, it's CRM. So it's IT, et cetera. And how that would work is consultants would go in, they would design the whole system from scratch, and then you would train people and it would never change. And if there were upgrades to the system, they didn't upgrade it visually. when Salesforce doesn't upgrade or ServiceNow doesn't upgrade, it's not adding any new visual things because you designed the visual, right? The interface is locked down at that point. And if you took classes on it, like Rebecca's saying, or her boss told her, everyone learns, it didn't matter because you learned what was there. The upgrades were to extend the functionality. I think where Airtable sometimes struggle is they want to be a Salesforce. And again, let's be honest, they've got the money, they've got the talent, they've got hired the guy from Facebook, they can do it. But they started off in a place where people still compare them to Monday or Trello or other things like that. And you can't have aspirations of being beyond Trello if you act like Trello. Even Trello doesn't mess with their interface. Right? I mean, let's be honest. Monday, I mean, so they're in this hinterland where they are doing these other things. But again, I think we just have to suck it up, because until Airtable is big enough where they can hire full-time Airtable developers, people like Rebecca and, and me and Ben who want to just come in there and tinker on Airtable all the day, they're going to have these problems that Rebecca and I'm sure Ben and Dan, you've seen this, where someone changes something and they have to retrain everybody. I mean, no one likes stuff to change. It's human nature. So I think they're shooting themselves in the foot from an enterprise standpoint, more in stunts like the extended form designer than the changes in pricing. If I'm being honest, because if I was an Airtable customer considering my Airtable and we were in a trial period and they just did something like this and it freaked out all my users, no sale. I'll go to ServiceNow.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
And I'm not being overly critical. I'm just like, again, I used to sell enterprise software when I was a young guy. This would never fly in the real world.
Well, and, I've made a lot of notes in this group and in different groups of, kind of going easy on them. And, as soon as they release something, we completely slaughter them for the little bit that's wrong. But it's been at the point now where they're releasing something and the whole thing's wrong. We're not nitpicking little bugs. We're nitpicking the whole thing.
And most enterprise companies have beta users to solicit this feedback. So again, if they've had users, show me the customer advisory form that approved the changes to licensing. I don't think it exists. Show me the customer advisory form that thought the UI changes in the extended form. I don't think it exists, right? You can't play big boy company until you do all the big boy processes. Right. Which means take your 300 customers and your multi-billion-dollar valuation and involve someone beyond, the people who are there now. Right. They need a United Nations Council of Airtable users or a Noah's Ark, whatever metaphor you need. And just, again, people would do it for free and just do it. I've been on the Microsoft Customer Advisory Board for BPulse, which became Office 360. I mean, you can get users who will volunteer their time and tell you.
Well, we already do it.
But we're doing it after the fact. These other companies do it
beforehand. Before you roll this out to everyone, have this advisory board to say, no, don't do that. Change that. Or actually, yeah, that's great. Go ahead and roll it out.
No, what I'm trying to say is we as a group already do it. So why wouldn't we be the community advisory board or whatever?
Because Airtable doesn't recognize us as a group.
I inquired on just getting the consultant group to get access to every single beta that they chose to go with. And the response that I got from that was it would be very difficult to get every single product team working on any version of the product to put us into their beta group. So basically that means each product team on the product team works on a specific part of the product and they pick their beta users independent of all the other product teams.
So you're picking the users who fit your one use case you built the thing for and not talking to anybody else? And also, that's a terrible...
Most money is who they pick. And that's none of us. Even though we might represent a large portion, we're not the ones. Even though I calculated, I'm pretty sure they get like $500 from me per month from Pro Plan because I'm shared on that many workspaces. But I'm still not.
To be fair, I think you're talking, there's slightly different things. It's one thing to say these are beta features where they only want to curate who is actually trying out the beta. It's very different when you're going to say, we're going to take something that's in our core product that affects everyone, that's changing what's existing in the core product, and who are you going to ask about that?
And
Do you guys
so
remember?
someone,
Do you guys remember when I went to the growth webinar for Airtable?
I remember that. Yeah.
So Airtable had a growth webinar. I've got my notes from it. I'll share them real quick. I had a bunch of screenshots from the growth webinar too. But the thing that was really interesting about the growth webinar was how much they tweak different features for customers that they want to convert to enterprise. So it's almost like there's some type of social experiment that's outside of even use cases to say, and I've been saying this for a while, but nobody wants to listen. It's all about getting people into that enterprise tier. And again, if that is the case, then, you know, make it so, get rid of the other plans, right? But I almost feel like in some way, we're the Soylent Green, the free, the plus, and the pro to possibly convert. You know, we're the carriers of the Airtable virus. I walk it into my customers, Dan walks it into his. And I think in that way, you know, if you want to like have a toxic view on some of these changes, like call it what it is. Okay, if you need me to deliver the message to get you some more money, then just be honest about it and give it to me for free.
If you want to say that what you want to do is just focus on enterprise, why are you still saying that you're democratizing software creation?
exactly.
But there are some things that I think does help with democratized software creation. I mean, giving free users access to an app does help with software democratization. Saying that everybody gets to use scripting for free with unlimited instances, that helps software democratization. But it's only helping that very low level, and you've got this big middle, really huge middle. And how many enterprise customers, honestly, have there been that haven't been pro for a long time?
Yeah.
There's someone in that company was with pro for long enough to really like it and build it out to convince everyone else to say, we need to scale up to enterprise.
So take, who was the other guy? I'm sorry, I'm going to Devon. So I like what I think it was Kavan just said. We've got this big middle. I mean, and Dan and Ben, you work with actual customers, right? So what am I? I'm spending what? Probably right now, like $1,500 a year on Airtable. And that's because I have multiple workspaces, multiple users for all sorts of different things that I do. So, you know, that's not a whole lot. You know, if you're spending $500 a month, Ben, that's, you know, $5,000 a year. That's a huge middle. There is a huge middle. Dan, you've probably helped enterprise customers, haven't you? Dan, would you say a majority of your customers are enterprise size or mid-size?
No, they're mid. They're mid.
Yeah, that's what I would say too.
Well,
And
and
Ben, how
even-
about you?
And
Mid or
even
enterprise?
I've got very, very, very large companies that should be enterprise, but they're on the pro. And mainly because they don't want to go through the sales process to become enterprise and all the legal hoops. And so they're like, that'll take 6 months to go through IT to get it all signed and everything. And we need to get going now. And so they kind of go beneath the radar on a pro plan.
But I know people who literally share I don't know people, but I've heard people say they share logins so they can get around licensing issues. I know, and almost like Airtable, the big middle, like everybody's doing everything they can to stay below enterprise. And I think Airtable set up a system, almost a social class system, where people will do, even if they have the money, they'll do anything to avoid enterprise because enterprise is such a mystery. I don't know any other enterprise software company that has this much mystery, and I've worked for some of the biggest. You know, I feel like, oh, go ahead.
And even without the jump from that, like from the limited knowledge that I've heard from people who have went through I know Rebecca's actually went through the enterprise sales process, but Rebecca, maybe you can just tell us what the jump was for you.
As far as what made us start to try that, or what the monetary jump was?
Price jump.
So we were first quoted $36,000,
For a year.
and we
For-
very
for what?
quickly, for like what we asked for was basically about 5 licenses, and like very minimal, like basically saying like, hey, we don't need a lot. And the guy just kind of tried to sell us on the max thing that they possibly offer, I guess. And it took maybe a 30 to 45-minute conversation to get the guy to listen to the fact that like, we don't have people competent enough to fill these licenses. And after, I would say about an hour's Zoom conversation, we got it down to 14,000 a year with no customer success manager, no anybody to help you at Airtable. Like that's bare bones, basically a pro plan with increased limit. But now I'm hearing quotes even as low as, $7,000-8,000. And it's like, well, we asked for the absolute minimum that we could possibly, do features wise. And we're quoted 12 less than a year ago. So there's also, indications for maybe some enterprise model pricing model restructuring. Maybe enterprise is not as expensive as it used to be, but you need to tell people that. We don't know to try for it if we all think it's $32,000.
So if you go back old school, we used to have these things called concurrent and named licenses. Dan, do you remember all this? Like when you buy enterprise software, you're usually buying a number of seats. And then if you actually want like your end users to use the thing, you actually have a whole self-service side. So it's like you can have 5,000 people coming through this one portal or something like that. But then your administrators was a license type, like we as Airtable users, we'd be in my stripe. The people who'd get in who aren't administrators, kind of like we have editor and all that, those are also per seat license types. But I almost feel like Airtable's kind of, because of the way they started when it was smaller and grew into this thing, I'm just going to say what I always say. They need to rewrite the whole license structure. It just needs to go.
Yeah.
Because the security is tied to it. Like the fact that I can't lock down certain views.
Yeah.
I should be able to lock down automations.
There's a podcast out there with the CEO of Profitwell, which is a SaaS pricing software company. And he has on the CEO of another SaaS company who's the founder of Kissmetrics, Hiten Shah. He's got a pretty big following. And Hiten Shah is very adamantly upset with Airtable. He's a huge Airtable user and fan, and just is pounding the table that they need to change their pricing, and kind of goes into the specifics of. And you see this Twitter thread where he calls them out, and there's a lot of like blue checks commenting on it. And one of the founders of Coda replies to the thread talking about how, basically saying like, that's exactly why we came up with the pricing that we have at Coda, that they call it like their creator or builder model, where you only pay for the people that can actually like modify it, not the end user that can just edit. And Coda is that way, Notion is that way, spreadsheet.com is that way. So, if you're familiar with like Innovator's Dilemma, like Airtable, even though they're still very young as a company, they're kind of like the incumbent, and they're being innovated against on the pricing model by these new up and coming ones. And because they can't just say, okay, any editor is now free, only the creators have to pay, because that's 70% of their revenue.
But Dan, you bake software. The challenge is beyond licenses. It's the whole security model of the system.
Yeah, right.
All right. So like, if you really want to get down to brass tacks, the licensing is the last of our issues. If you want to talk about big changes you're going to have to deal with that you hate, at some point in the next 12 months, you're going to have to put security around everything from views to automations to apps. Literally, kind of what they've started the foray now with the management for enterprise. You can log in and see all your users and stuff like that. It's coming. If you think you've got stuff now.
Yeah.
But again, it's fundamentally needed to go underneath and say everything has an access point, and those access points roll up to license types. Done. But when they're growing this fast and raising this much money, to say they're going to maybe chop off 20% of their revenue year over year because of this licensing switch, even though it'd make them more money in the long run because people understand the model better, maybe some people on their board. I was talking to one of their board members on LinkedIn the other day who reached out to me about something else. I was trying to get my husband a job doing something. And like, they got to keep making money. It's just that simple. That's just, I mean, Dan knows. Dan makes software. Dan, can you just stop making money for a while and change? No.
Well, not at their valuation, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you brought up before.
But again, I don't want to sound like I'm picking on them. I certainly don't want to sound like I'm defending them. But everybody on this call and people watching this show or listening to it, I don't know if we do a podcast, but you have a dog in the fight. And I think if anything, you just need to do what I try to do, which is always do the best you can with the product, always state where you're coming from. And then like Kuvan and Rebecca and other people have done, always remind Airtable of what their mission is. If it's to democratize software, maybe you should start with fixing the licenses. I mean, it's going to be fine at the end of the day. And I've thought about this a million times. Even if things go to hell in a handbasket, I'm at Airtable for one reason and one reason only. When I made this switch and made it hard 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, I can take all my CSVs and walk away.
Right.
And that's enough to keep me coming back, because I will build and build and build some more. But the minute they do something with my data where I can't actually take those CSVs and an ERD and drop all those attachments to a through a script or something, I'm done. I'm out of here. You can't walk away from ServiceNow. You can't walk away from Salesforce. I mean, if you want to talk about what should make you love Airtable, it's not interface designer. It's not the apps. It's the fact that you can walk away. Airtable is the marriage that is flexible. It's polyamorous SaaS.
But is that also terrifying for a company?
Well, don't even I've talked to Airtable people about this. We had this thing back in the 2000s called BYOD, bring your own device. Dan, you're old. You remember this stuff, right? And we had this whole concept of shadow IT. We talked about on the show a long time ago. And the idea with shadow IT was people would come in, create their own systems, use their own devices. Now it's much scarier. You look at what someone could do with Airtable. There's a whole nother world going on there. But again, you'll notice they were really careful about kind of the whole remote work and kind of collaborative feature of it. Rebecca, you picked up something very big, and
I think if I was Airtable, I would only be scared if Google Tables was more scalable. Because if you could just take your CSVs and throw them in Google Tables and you had the same functionality and the same higher limits, I think I could see a lot of people doing that once Google Tables becomes a better, more mature product.
I downloaded the Microsoft Airtable clone app. It's nice. So, and I'm on a Microsoft plan now. I think they should be a little bit leery of Microsoft, to be honest with you. Microsoft's not worth more than Apple and Google and all of them. I don't know if anyone's watching that valuation.
I think there's a lot of people that use Airtable, especially the ones that use third-party integrations that have any significant number of zaps or integromat scenarios or anything like that, where it actually would be really, really hard for them to take their CSVs and walk away, because there's all that other business logic that they've poured into it of, this is how they get their workflows done. It would be very, very hard
to me, Airtable automations and Airtable interface designer is the first chop into the tree that you just can't walk away from us. Up until interface designer, I felt pretty comfortable walking away. But now if I had to walk away from this, I wouldn't want to do it. I need this every day. You know what I'm saying? If I had to walk away from my other sites, and again, I think the whole issue they've got coming up with companies like Pori and Stacker, that's kind of a big deal. I hate the fact that at some point I have to walk away from this.
So
right?
What it is it's not just your data. It's your
walk away from this.
workflows.
Yeah, it's my workflow, right? But again, at some point, they're going to have, again, we're going to have a front end. And I've heard, and I'm sure we all have heard, but I can't get in trouble, that it's coming. A front end, kind of like a Pori or something, is coming. The licensing restructure, I heard, is coming. I mean, do you guys, anyone want to admit that they've heard this?
I assumed that the dashboard or the interface designer is what they considered a front end, or what their response to what we were asking for. Like they misunderstood the assignment
of a front end. Well, I think it's just step one. They eventually say that they're looking into the concept of having a front end that you don't have to be a collaborator to access. And that's the step one was, well, let's build a front end where it only works with collaborators, but let's have that before we can even consider having something else where people aren't collaborators on it. But this is the other thing I think is, keep in mind, they had interface designer. They were building on that for what, like a year or so, where they weren't telling people about it, and then suddenly they pushed it on us. They took, when they made Gantt view and timeline view, you know, they were working on those for a long time without telling anyone. What are they working on now that they just haven't told us yet?
Well,
They're
too,
working
but that
on
comes, that circles back to the community research thing, and it's what are they going to put out and have to peel back because everybody yells and screams. You know, maybe if you're telling at least small group, you know, under NDA or not under NDA, doesn't matter, telling a group of people, hey, this thing is coming, what do you think about it, what do you need out of it, like.
And again, the NDA thing, I've heard people, I don't know if it was Ben or someone else, but I've heard all sorts of people tell me they've had to sign NDAs for Airtable. Like, I understand, like, there's some paper pusher who's actually saying that they need to do that. But in reality, at that valuation, there are certain things they have to do. I don't need an NDA. You're going to do it. I mean, so can we cut the charade, and just say, okay, you're going to do this, this, and this. I mean, again, I think, like we've said multiple times, it's the fact that they're doing these little tests and little silos. I think a real customer advisory board probably should be formed. Maybe their community person will start to do this, but I don't know.
I would wake up with a smile on my face if they surprised us with a front end someday. Like, I would be pretty happy. They don't have to tell me. Like, if I wake up and there's a front end, I'll be ecstatic. You know, I'll message all my clients that there's a new front end that works with external
The
users.
minute they change the licensing process, they will be.
Yeah.
The only reason we don't have one now is because how do they charge for it? I don't know. Can I show you guys my new home front end I built?
Sure, let's see it.
So last week on the show, I think I showed you guys my CRM front end for my customers, et cetera, that I'm working with, et cetera. Well, this past week, because we're getting ready to have a big freeze in Texas, I updated my home front end. I showed part of this once ago, but again, I've got all my new home stuff, assets, et cetera, like that. But I built a whole disaster center for my home. And then the different parts of these disaster safety links point to different infrastructure things. So if the cable goes out or something like that because of the freeze or we lose energy, you can go into one of these, you can see the actual interactions with the cable company. We need calling, have to, other than that, and the actual bill. If I need to pay the bill, jump right here, go out to the Comcast website. And then
for those who are watching, this is in Pori, which sits on top of Airtable, but this is all Airtable data. Just because there might be people who are seeing this.
You're right. I always forget to say that. Dan, do you like this? Do you think this looks cute?
For sure. Yes. Very
and then
nice.
I did these consumption dashboards for gas, electric, and water. So I can see what we're using in the house. The warranty dashboard I've had for a while. The thing is, I like to get stuff before it runs out of warranty and actually take it in for work. And then again, all the different assets we have. I want to come here and just show me major assets. If I want to jump into one of those assets and see the information on that asset, the price of the asset, all the information related to it. And then again, related assets to the homeowner's insurance, documents tied to the asset, tasks tied to the asset, bills tied to the asset, vendors, etc. So I shared it with the rest of my family members the other day. They loved it.
That's
what do you guys
amazing.
think? Fun?
I love it.
I think
lots
you've had
of work to do.
I think what helps with this is you've already had a system in place for putting all of that data input. Like if someone else, like it's awesome, it's amazing, but like if someone else wants to do it, they'd have to go gather the information and have a system for putting in and gathering all of that information. That's a lot of work. It's amazing. It's an awesome thing that you've built.
What's really interesting about it is like everybody gets a bill in the mail. Like that bill in the mail should go on your Airtable. And then what happens to that bill? Well, there's a company tied to that bill, right? There's a asset or some service tied to that bill, right? And then there's the things that come out of that, paying the bill. So to me, I don't know. I don't think I've done anything more than just kind of thought about it.
But you've got it where it's automatically feeding it in there. You're not sitting there every month, bill comes in and you're looking at that physical piece of paper and typing it in.
Web Clipper is your friend. Web Clipper is your friend.
I've had it like 3 or 4 times this week. It's kind of like I would label it as like a problem. Like I'll show somebody an interface or they think of like what they want it to look like, but they have no idea like what they want in it. They just want something that they say, like, for example, like a business dashboard is like the easiest example that I can give. They're like, I want a dashboard and I want it like just to go there and know everything. And it's like, okay, then like, what do you want in it? Like, what are your KPIs? Like for Chris, like for someone that wants to build something like Chris, like, what are your values? And then how do you build from there and like know what you actually want in your dashboard? I think it's easy.
Well, again, when I was thinking about mine, like home, okay, I want to have like disaster stuff, right? If I
Yeah.
go to my work one, I want to have like my incoming customers. If I go to my health one, I want to have my last doctor's visit and my next doctor. I mean, I could go through them all.
Yeah, for Chris, maybe you should show like you can't. Yours is all centered around values. Like you shouldn't build,
Yes.
but it's all sent for those who haven't seen it at all before. It's all centered around a value, or it's
Yeah. So what I did with my original Airtable was I said, and the whole reason I built my Airtable was when I was thinking about all the ways you can log and to be productive and everything else, you end up being tied to like the KPIs of key performance indicators of whatever the system is. And I think this is really Airtable's big thing. So for me, when I built mine, it was really like, okay, my entities are like me, my family, my pets, all of those like things I'm responsible for. But the second table in the whole system is values, right? Health, home, family, work, finances. And then this value, every single record in every single table is tied to a value, right? So again, if I want to see all the bills related to home, all of the projects related to family, all the interactions and people related to work, again, when I think about life, I think about a thing, this rock, and then all the things this rock was related to. And if I can't find the rock, what do I think of? Well, it's a rock. Where would a rock would be? So a place. Where did I buy it? Do I have a receipt? Would the receipt tell me where the rock is? You know what I mean? That's why I'm sorry, I'm getting creepy. But that's why I love databases, is because to me, it's
Then you can
everything is
organize all of that.
everything is relational. Yeah.
Well, and
It's
so
like
you
when you use
talk
your
about-
Find My.
I'll be right back. I have
right.
something.
Dan, we should do another show with you sometime. I think last time I showed all this off was a few years ago. I think it's gotten a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it is very impressive.
But to the end, I think what Ben was saying, at the end of the day, people don't know what they want until you show them. I'm working, I don't know, you guys know this, but I do a lot of work with communities of color. I built that Black Speakers Coalition database. What I'm working on now is something for the Black Sustainability Network. Again, they have a bunch of members all over the world, all have different skills, so eco-friendly building, alternative economies, et cetera. And they had no way really interfacing and finding each other and actually creating like a marketplace for people to buy, sell, and trade services and support each other. So again, I whipped this thing out in an hour. They sent me this spreadsheet. I created a form so everyone can go in and update their form. And we just launched this today, and like they've got so many people using it. And again, you can't do this with, I don't know, maybe there are other tools you can whip this out, but hand me a spreadsheet, I'll change your world.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You know, Pori's free. A spreadsheet on Airtable, there's a free plan. Yeah, I know I don't have to turn in a commercial for Airtable, but I think their biggest strength is their biggest weakness at the end of the day. You should charge a lot for this Airtable, and I know they're trying to. Oh, well, I can rant all night. Dan, it was so good to have you on the show.
Good to be with you guys.
Dan, what could we
enjoy
do better? Are you in our Facebook little group? We
I
have
am.
6,000 people now. And
Yep.
have you ever seen one of our little Wednesday shows?
Yes, I watched quite a few of them.
Okay, what could we do different as a community member? See what we're doing here? We're actually soliciting the community.
That's
Take
right.
note, Howie.
That's right. I don't know if there's any way to interact with Airtable. If you could get an Airtable person on your show, I think that would go a long way.
Way back in the day, in like our first or second episode, we had, I can't remember the guy's name. It was when we were in Clubhouse and not recorded.
It was a while ago.
There's not been one since.
Yeah. Just be that liaison, that voice between the community and Airtable, and I think that can go a long way.
Yeah, because Dan, you have a legit community. We're more irreverent over here.
You've got three times the community I do as far as numbers.
Oh,
No, I think it's fine that there's multiple communities because they each have their own different flavor and personality, and people will find what works for them.
Yeah.
Well, we got to take a moment to celebrate too, because here in the Facebook group, we hit 6K recently.
I
Yeah.
know.
Not exactly that happened, but
We must
I
get
popped
50
on there.
people
It
a
was
day
nice
some
big
days.
6.0, and we are like less than 50 members or something like that from hitting 1,000 in the BuiltOnAir Slack community. So pop in, maybe we can have some sort of fun game, raffle some consultant time or something to get some Slack members to get us over the threshold. But
Yep.
all of those things are there for your service. We spend a lot of time in here, just giving as much value as we can. So we're here to help.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody here for showing up. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.